How to get started in creative financing in real estate investing. What is up, guys? Zach Ginn here, and in today's video, I'm going to give you a complete creative finance one-on-one guide on exactly what is creative financing and exactly how you can get started in creative financing. And most importantly, if you are a wholesaler like me starting out and not really knowing anything about creative financing, I'm going to show you and break it down as simply as possible how you can benefit as a wholesaler, real estate investor. Heck, if you're just making to look more money on your rental properties, this is going to be an amazing breakdown tutorial for you. Most gurus will charge thousands of dollars to learn creative financing or take a masterclass on it, but I'm going to give you an exact breakdown for beginners for free right now today. But before we get into it, do me a big favor, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, and let's get into it. So the first question you probably have is, what is creative financing? And creative financing has a bunch of different terms and ways to say it, but the honest truth is creative financing is just a unique or uncommon way to buy a piece of real estate or a piece of land. That's the best definition I can find of it, because everybody knows when buying regular pieces of real estate, either buy it for cash or you get a mortgage on it. A lot of creative financing is happening from doing unconventional tactics to buy pieces of real estate. For example, subject twos, lease options, seller financing. Those are definitely very confusing terms starting out, and I will explain how they work in this video. But all you really have to understand right now is we are acquiring pieces of real estate and making money off of that acquiring of the property through these creative financing strategies. The reason why you need to learn creative financing is if you're a wholesaler and you're making good money wholesaling, which me, making millions of dollars, you're still leaving a lot of money on the table where you could potentially make even more money through the power of creative financing. And no, it costs no money out of pocket for a lot of these real estate deals. They're done very similar to wholesaling deals if you know exactly how they work. And it does take a little bit of know-how, but if you use a lawyer, you should be fine. Everything I do say is legal as of this video in most states, but again, seek a legal counsel and an attorney before you do any of these strategies. On top of that too, if you didn't know this, but if you create a creative financing deal or a structure, you can actually assign that creative financing deal for a profit. For example, I pay wholesalers thousands of dollars, upwards to $10, $15, even $20,000 assignment fees for making a really good creative finance deal for me. Because these creative financing deals can make me $1,000, even $2,000 a month in profits for the rest of my life. This is the power of creative financing. It creates great generational wealth. And the one thing you got to understand about creative financing is it creates wealth. It creates wealth slow, while in wholesaling, it makes money fast. So you get a lot of the money and it's done very fast in wholesaling. The thing is, in creative financing, you create that wealth very, very slow, but over time it accumulates like crazy. So creative financing is a way where you can turn your dead leads in wholesaling real estate, deals that there might just want to sell for way too much, or leads where there's just no equity, where they owe way too much, where it doesn't even make sense for a wholesaling deal and you can't even lowball them, and you're gonna make no money at all. How do I turn this into a creative financing deal and make a ton of money for wholesaling real estate? Well, let me write it down and break it all down right now on how you can make some money in creative financing. So you got to understand in creative financing, there's really main three branches where you can really make money. Option number one is probably the most common one. The best one I have found is just subject twos. Number two is what we call lease options. I love this strategy. My average lease option deal is over $40,000. And then number three is seller finance. And you can make a ton of money off of these three strategies. But let's break down each one. And I have a little handy chart I like to make for it when I explain it. So here's a little chart. We have method, terms, PITI/costs, profit, and then lead type. And each one of these strategies have a different one for each one. So let me explain this. So the first method, obviously we have subject to. And so this will be the first method. Obviously there's subject to, lease option, seller financing, but let's use subject to for this example only. First thing we're going to look at here are the terms. So let's break down the terms of this deal. We're going to have a nice little house right here for sale. And this property is worth around $200,000 to a cash buyer. That's just the value of the property. And that's what it's worth on its best day. The seller here has a $180,000 mortgage on the property. And so with that mortgage, it's going to cost, let's just use rough numbers, $900 every single month for the mortgage and roughly around $300 for the tax. I would add an extra $300 just for repairs every single year and little stuff like that. And this will bring, honestly, the cost of owning the real estate to around $1,500 a month. Knowing this, if I'm going on here and just trying to wholesale this house, as a wholesaler, a wholesaler offer here is probably going to be around, I don't know, like $140K. Obviously, they have a $140,000 mortgage. That would mean the seller would have to pay negative $40K at closing. Obviously, that's going to be a big no. That is not going to be a good deal at all. So wholesaling this deal is not going to be a good option for me. It's what we call low equity. So how in the dang world am I going to make money on this deal? We can use what we call a subject to. So right here on the terms, it's got a $200,000 value. PITI and costs are going to be roughly about $1,500 out the door. PITI stands for principal, insurance, taxes, and interest on paying the property, and then obviously repair costs and holding on to the value. So there's definitely cost on that. Now, how to make profits on this? There's no equity on the deal. Well, with the benefit of doing a subject to transaction, I can actually give the seller money to just take her mortgage over. For example, here, I could just give the seller $10,000 and just take that loan over to me when I will pay the full $1,500. I'll pay the mortgage, I'll pay the taxes, I'll pay the repairs. I'll take over her mortgage payment of $1,500 and just give her $10,000 out the door. The mortgage stays in her name, but the deed will go in my name. This is how a subject to works. Now, there's different ways to do it. You can have them keep the deed. You can do land trusts, way other stuff like that. But the reason that I can make money on this is I can rent this thing out for like, let's say $1,900 a month. The reason I can make money is that I can rent this thing out for $2,000 a month to a tenant, and my costs are $1,500 a month out the door. That gives me $500 a month in profit, or $1,000 a year in profit on a deal that only cost me $10,000. That's a 60% return on my money. On addition, I'm paying down the loan. And then on top of that, the house is just going to keep going up in value. So there's a lot of money to be made on this deal. So when you're looking at this, you're going to make about $6,000 a year plus equity built, plus the equity you're going to have on this. And with only paying $10K up front, there's a lot of money to be made on that. So the perfect lead type, the perfect avatar for this type of deal is honestly going to be someone that has low equity in the deal. And on top of that, there's very low repairs. Because if I have to put some extra money just repairing the property, my ROI is going to go down on this. So that's why properties that have low equity and low repairs are really good subject to deals. Now, if you want to learn how to market to subject twos and find these type of sellers, just go to freewholesaling.com. That's my free real estate investing course. It'll cover everything you need to know about that. Now let's shift back and let's talk about lease options for a second. Let's say it's the same type of house, but the seller bought this a while back ago, so there's only a $50,000 mortgage. Let's say there's only a $60,000 mortgage. That'll cut that mortgage to about $300 a month with the same taxes and repairs. That will bring around the total cost of this piece of real estate, $900 a month just to own it. This seller, you can obviously see, has $140,000 in equity, $200,000 minus $60,000. They could take a wholesale deal, but they don't want to. They could go with a realtor. They don't want to do that because it's roughly 10, 12% just to close it. That's why a subject to seller can't go with a realtor either, because they don't have enough equity. They go a short sale route, but they got to do bankruptcy and it's not worth it for them. But a lease option here, which I'll write right here, is going to nail me around 40, 50K in profits. And let me show you exactly how to do it here. A seller on this deal does not want to sell to a wholesaler because they want the most for the house. They know the house is worth $200,000. Here's the main issue. They don't want to pay 12% with a realtor. They don't want a 150K lowball offer, and they don't know what to do. They want a super high price for this, and they're worried about taxes because they're going to have to pay the full taxes on this piece of real estate. What we can do is a lease with an option to buy. And what this means is I can give that same $10,000 down payment to the seller, agree to give them $1,300 a month for a lease. And then in 5 years, I agree to purchase the property. I agree to buy it for a full $230,000, which is $30,000 above what the thing is even worth. You might be saying, Zach, you're overpaying for the house and you're giving them a down payment. How do you make money off of this? We got to remember there's going to be some appreciation with this deal, but there's so many tenants and people out here that just want to sell this deal. There's so many tenants out here that want to buy a piece of real estate, but they just can't afford it. And what they do is what we call rent to own, where they'll rent the property from us. And then at the end of the term, they can go purchase it with a mortgage when they get the money for it. And so how do you make money on this deal? Knowing well, I can get $2K a month in rent. I'm going to sign what we call a lease with an option to buy. We're roughly with the numbers. We're in year one, I'll collect $2,000. It goes up 10% to $2,200 for the lease. Then year three, it's $2,300, $2,400 a month, and then $2,500 a month in the last year of the lease. You multiply each one by 12 for how many months? That's roughly $136,000 and $800 in collected rent over 5 years. And that will cost us around $78,000 in payments to the original seller. And that would give us literally $58,000, $800 in just arbitrage money on this deal. Now, I might be saying to yourself, Zach, what about the taxes and repairs and all those things? Well, here's the cool part. The person that I'm giving the lease with the option to buy, they have to take care of the taxes and the repairs because they're basically have an option to buy. They're already basically an owner on the deal. And then on top of that, the person with the lease with option to buy has to pay $250,000 to buy the house at the end of the term after 5 years. It should definitely be worth that by then, which means I already agreed to buy it for $230,000. So I'm making about $20,000 in profit right there too. On top of that, I had to pay $10,000 down payment to the seller. I'm going to get about $15,000 from my rent to own buyer, which is going to net me another $5,000 in profit, which is going to net me a nice $83,800. Now, all I have to do here is pay that mortgage at $300 for 5 years, which is about $18,000, which is not really that big of a deal. And so that should net at the end of the deal, like here in 5 years, $65,800 in profits. Holy moly, that's an amazing deal right there. All from doing one type of seller deal. Now there's benefits to the seller here. I'm paying down their mortgage. So at the end of the 5 years, that equity for 5 years I've been paying 5 years into their equity. I pay for the taxes. I paid for the interest. I paid for all these things. And so the seller gets 5 additional years of equity in the deal. They get a guarantee of them selling the property for a big profit, and they can spread out their income with a $1,300 a month lease. It's a win-win for everyone. So this deal will have $2,000 in rent. This is why Lease Options make so much stinking money. They're just so effective at producing cash flow. Now, the last part here is what we call seller finance. And it's very similar to Lease Options, except on top of that, the person might not want to do a lease. They might just want to become the bank and just hold the money and you give them payments over time on it, kind of like a mortgage, where they'll record a note and you make payments for 10, 15 years at an interest rate. And honestly, it's not a bad deal because if you talk to a motivated seller about seller financing, you might have an old retiree. You might ask them like, hey, what are you going to do with this $200,000 if I go buy your property right now? Oh, I'm probably just going to keep it in the bank and keep it there and use it for my retirement. I'm like, okay, how much is the bank paying you in interest? Well, the bank's pretty much going to pay me 0.001%, right? Or Mr. Seller, if you want, you can seller finance me this deal. I can give you $20,000 as a down payment, pay you $1,000 a month, and you'll be making about 5% on that money. So you're going to make roughly $10,000 more every single year from just doing it like this versus not making it from there. And you think about the terms like this, if it costs me roughly $1,500, if it costs me about $600 in real costs, that means my payments are gonna be $1,600. If I can rent somebody in there for $2,000, I'm gonna make about $400 a month in profit, which isn't too much, but over a period of 10 to 15 years, you can definitely make a lot of money. And those are nominal deals you can do. Obviously, you switch it up. And let's say you want to pay 0 interest, and maybe they could sell the deal for like $220,000. You can shift that to like $550 a month and make an additional $850 a month in profit, which would be about 10 grand in profit over the 20 grand you just put as a down payment. And then you make way more money on that. It's honestly up to you, but you'll actually be the owner of this house and they would just be a bank having a deed on this. And on top of this, this is the power of seller financing too. I want you to understand this. Creative financing is a huge portion of real estate investing that I can go on and on and on forever about. But if you just learned exactly how to use these tools and understand the concepts of subject twos, lease options, seller financing, you can make a lot of money in this real estate investing game. So if you want to learn exactly how to start doing creative financing deals, finding the sellers, negotiating the deals, what to say to take these things over, and the best tips and strategies to start doing a lot of these type of deals, just go to freewholesaling.com, my wholesaling and real estate investing course, and you get started in creative financing. I just want to do a quick breakdown today of what creative financing is and some examples of deals. And so that's exactly how I learned it. And then I started doing these deals and I started learning by doing it on the job. That made me a lot more money too. So if you got any value from this video, make sure you do me a big favor. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. This is Zach Ginn signing out. Have a blessed one.